Someone's going to go for 2 and get it at some point.
It's 1:42 in the morning.
Yeah, that's all right. Number 1. Shocker. Iron.
Man, give me the Trojans.
There we go.
Welcome into Overtime, presented by Perfection One. Along with John Bruce, my name is Dewey Dailey as we welcome you into this week's show, episode 48 of Overtime. I think our... What did we end off on last year? Was it 40? So I think maybe our 8th. I think. Well, no, it should be 9, right? Because I think we're in line with every week of the football season. So this should be our 9th episode. I don't remember what we left off on last year, but either way, back for another episode.
We ended after basketball season.
Yeah, we ended right after the district finals at the Combo. But gonna talk a lot about last week's football, preview some of the games coming up this week. Go through some power rankings and also talk about the soccer and volleyball tournaments, which some of the district first round action is Monday night, which is the night we're recording, so won't really be able to recap any of that as it's probably starting right around now.
6 o'clock. That should be starting at 6 o'clock.
Yeah. So there are actually a handful of games that...
There's actually some good games.
I know, right. There are a handful of volleyball and soccer games that should actually be about as good as you could ask for what would normally be a sectional semifinal. So we'll more than likely talk about some of those next week.
D3 volleyball is dumb because there's 6 teams in it and they're all good. So there's going to be 2 that are out within probably before we get done taping this episode.
Right.
And that just kind of shows, even though the divisions, there's more now, it's still going to be just as difficult to make a long tournament run. In certain areas, there's going to be certain teams that it's not. I won't say exactly who, but there's one team very good at soccer that has a very comfy road to possibly an Elite 8. So, yeah, as long as they take care of business and stay healthy. Yeah. I think I said it elsewhere, but I might have said it before too, but they're really good. But so we got some golf in as well. We had a big golf headline, and then one that's not as big, but it's still pretty good because it's much better than we would do if we went out and shot on that course. But so it should be a good week. Pretty interesting week last week. Wasn't as tight as the week before, but we saw
broke our streak.
Yeah, we did break our streak of 1 possession games. And it was a 2-possession game. What was it, 5 minutes left when they scored the touchdown? Yeah. So it still looked like it could have been a 1-possession game going in late, but our couple other options, neither of those were particularly close either. One was closer than the other for most of it, with Miami Trace playing Jackson tight in the half. But, so looks like we may have decided some league champions last week, and we're getting a lot closer. And this week we'll pretty much lock it up, as I know a couple of games we're going to talk about will pretty much lock it up for sure.
All right, so we will go ahead and jump into this week's headlines. You sort of alluded to it. We're going to talk about a couple of golfers here in the Southeast District. We'll start with Lucasville Valley's Cameron Phillips. He's a senior, right?
Yes.
So he's just a few months away from headed to Kentucky's in Lexington.
Yes.
Yeah, that's where I thought it is. He'll be heading there to continue his, begin his collegiate golf career, but grabbed some hardware on his way out as the D3 state champ, and a rather dominant win for him as well.
Yeah, if you went out onto your local golf course and you decide you're going to play one hole, you shank a couple, and then you lay up, and then you 3-putt for an 8, well, that's how many strokes he won by. He won the state championship by 8 strokes. That's multiple just falling apart holes. If he would have fallen apart on a couple holes, he's still going to win the state championship. He dominated completely. He was up 5 after the first day and then ends up winning by 8 total strokes. That's insane. Valley goes as a team. They finished 12th, but Cameron Phillips, there's a reason why he's going to Kentucky, because that dude can play. Is lefty also, so probably looks better when it comes off. Everything lefties do in sports looks better. Except for, there's a couple of things. If you're a lefty pitcher and you throw overhand, Like if you come down like side,
I don't think lefty quarterbacks look very good.
Yeah, it looks kind of.
Tua looks awful when he throws the football. I know there are some. Even Tebow. I don't feel like Tebow looked particularly.
Because Tebow was just strong. He was one big muscle.
There were a couple. I think Mike Vick looked all right when he threw.
He was a freak. Yeah, but So Cameron Phillips, Division III state champion. Like, dude, that's unreal. We don't want to play with you because that would be.
We want to play with you, just not against you.
Not against you. Yeah, if you want to play a scramble with us, we'll take you on our team.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a heck of a way to close out your high school career with an 8-stroke victory in the state championship tournament.
And we'll stick with golf as Westfall's Paige Weiss places third in Division II, and Westfall in the top 6 as a team as well.
Yeah, Westfall has made it to state 7 times. This was their best finish. Last year was their best as they finished 7th. This year they finished 6th as a team. Weiss ends up being 3rd overall. I don't remember where she's going to school, but she's going to go continue to play as well.
I thought it was Findlay, wasn't it?
Her brother goes to Findlay.
Oh, maybe that's what it was.
Her brother plays baseball at Findlay. But, yeah, so she's been just really good as a 4-year golfer for Westfall. And, they have a nice team, with Mariana Packer, Caroline Seaver, a couple of them, a couple of the other teammates. But, yeah, they've been really good as a whole.
Marion University?
That makes sense, yeah. So hopefully it's warm there.
Is that in Florida or something?
I'm not sure, but I hope it is because warm is better. It's easier to play in the warm.
It's in Philadelphia.
I don't like Philadelphia.
Oh, wait.
I have $300 there.
No, it's in Indy. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I know where that's at. My dad grew up there.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, he moved from Chicago to Marion to Chillicothe because that's how you get to Chillicothe, Ohio, I guess. But, yeah, so Paige Weiss is going to continue her golf career. Wouldn't be surprised to see if she keeps improving, that she steps up to a Division I level after that. Because Maddie Schultz, that graduated a couple years ago from Westfall, is now at Youngstown State, is playing D1. So, and she took a little longer way to get there as well. But it's just, third place is a heck of an accomplishment. That's going to be a, Westfall Hall of Fame member, and that's nothing to sneeze at. So, congratulations to her. Obviously, congratulations to Cameron as well. As let's go play a scramble. We'll take those two. We'll take everyone else with the field. Yeah. We may never play one of ours. Won't ever play one of mine. Maybe a putt.
Nah, yeah, we'll drop one in from like 10 feet.
Yeah,
get
and
lucky.
I'll go nuts and be like, "Oh, this is why we're here."
Or hit like a wedge shot or
something real lucky. But yeah, so congratulations to those players. We don't talk a ton of golf on here, but want to make sure to shout out the players and athletes that have done some spectacular things throughout their career, and that's a great way to finish their careers.
We'll stay in the SVC, but switch sports. We'll talk about Huntington's Leah McCloskey and Kaci. Carroll, McCloskey now, and both seniors. McCloskey now over 2,000 career assists, while Carroll now over 1,000 kills. Those two accolades more or less go hand in hand with one another. Yeah,
they've combined really well together this year, taking the Huntsmen to 19-3, which I don't know if a lot of people fully expected that out of them after last season, but they were 19-3. They were coming down to the last week. They played Adena, I think, with like 3 games left to go in the league play. Like, they finished 14-9 last year. 14-9, 6-8 in the league, and they finished 12-2 in the league this year, 19-3 overall. And I don't know if a lot of people, no one really had like true projections of the SVC, but I don't know if they thought that Huntington and Adena were going to be the top 2 or make the leaps that both of them did. But Huntington, a vastly improved team, and it's because of how good these two play together. Also, another senior in Allie Baker. They got a couple of really good freshmen like Braley Hosworth. They're just a good quality team, and they've got an excellent chance to make it to a district final and then maybe further, which we'll sort of talk about a little bit later. We'll get more into it next week, but so a great season for them. McCloskey became the lead setter this year, as she had kind of split time last year with that. And then Kaci Carroll was one of the better players in the SVC last year, and then really I think, put her stamp on being a top 3 player this year in the SBC. And, if they were able to pull off they lost in 5 to Adina a couple weeks ago. If they would have been able to pull off that win, there's a possibility that Carroll is going to split, player of the year with Adina's Katie Burns. But I think it's probably going to be Burns. But if they want Kaci Carroll, there'd be nothing wrong with that either. And, McCloskey, obviously a heck of a setter. Anytime you get 2,000 assists in your career, it helps when you have someone like a Kaci Carroll and then an Allie Baker as well. But, those are 2 outstanding players, and that's two of the big reasons why Huntington is off to a 19-3 start this year going into the postseason.
All right, so we can go ahead and hop into our football recaps from Week 8. Only going to talk about 2 games, and we'll first start off with our past week's Kingston National Bank Game of the Week. Unioto and Zane Trace meeting up as the last 2 undefeated teams in the Side of Valley Conference, as they both sat at 4-0 in league play. Unioto comes out on top 28-14. They're now heading into Week 9 against a team we sort of presumed would also be undefeated come that matchup with Paint Valley, but obviously, kind of stubbed their toe a little bit in Week 7 against Piketon, so they are now a 1-loss team in the conference and overall as well. So really for both Piketon for Zane Trace and Paint Valley, they really need the Bearcats to come out on top here because you kind of figure Unioto probably going to beat Southeastern in Week 10, so that would make Paint Valley Zane Trace in Week 10 a little more meaningful because the winner of that game probably going to split the league with Unioto. And really for Paint Valley, if you're able to knock off Unioto in Week 9 and then beat ZT in Week 10, it's kind of like, we split the league, but we have the head-to-head.
Yeah, you have the bragging rights in that way. Yeah, so in this one, first off, we appreciate anyone sticking with us through our live stream. Like, we don't know what's going on fully because we've had some success at some of these schools before with the internet, and it's just not doing as well this year. I feel like the shrinkflation stuff is kind of going on with everything, including like internet service, because even in Week 5 it worked pretty well out there, and it just didn't really work well with the same amount of streaming services there. And, we appreciate anyone sticking with us through that. We try to do our best each week. Sometimes it just kind of comes down to what we have. And this week wasn't great, but, things happen. And, we're going to keep going anyway because, obviously we have sponsors, but also it's a service. So we're going to keep it going. So if you were there or you were able to watch and kind of just listen to us talk about it, was a good game.
I think the audio
should have been working.
The audio stayed. I'm not totally sure. Because we're not watching it, obviously. And I haven't really gone back and watched it just because I know how bad it looks. So I'm not sure I will. But, yeah, through the first, I would say, it was a good game overall, right? Mm-hmm. Towards the end, it started to get away from ZT a little bit. But, Pioneers, it was a relatively uneventful first half in terms of scoring. 7-6 was the score at the end of one. And then Zane Trace comes out in the second half and scores first to go up 14-6, but then it's 22 unanswered from Unioto, and that was ultimately the final.
Yeah, so it was a really good finish for Unioto. As you mentioned, it was 7-6 at the half. First half, Unioto goes out, scores, I think it was 6 plays, goes right down the field. After taking the opening kickoff, they go down, I think it was like 62 yards. They go down and score, miss the extra point, which kind of led to some follies throughout the game of how they got to the 28. Then Zane Trace turns it over on their first play. The very next play, Unioto throws an interception. So it was like they were almost going back and forth on like, I don't really want to pull away from this. I don't want to, going back and forth a little bit. Then Silas Stewart scores late in the first half. Extra point's good. Makes it 7-6 at the break. So in the first half, Isaac Coy for Unioto threw 2 interceptions in the game. He only threw 1 incompletion in the second half, I believe, on 9 attempts in the second half. So it was much better in the second half. He also ran the ball a good bit. So coming out of the half, Zane Trace goes down and scores. I got a big run from Silas Stewart. It ended up being a 40-yard run. He punches it in a couple plays later. They got 14-6. Then that 22 unanswered points for Unioto's kind of they started to take the game over a little bit at that point. Really nice pitch and catch from Coy to Jackson. Zickafoos went up above two defenders and made a catch, comes down with it. Unioto misses that 2-point conversion, but they end up getting the ball back on their next possession, a really short punt. It was a short drive. It ends up being a 26-yard pass from Coy to Caden Cutright. It was really just a long screen pass, and a defender probably could have just made the tackle, but was trying to get the pick. I think ends up not touching the ball, goes to Cutright, and then once he gets in the open field, Caden Cutright, it's pretty much, unless you can force him out of bounds, it's lights out because he was able to get to the pylon. Unioto gets a 2-point conversion, and then in the fourth quarter, they're able to salt it away. Cody Braden, who's really good running the ball again, ends up scoring from a yard out on a 4th and goal with about 5.5 minutes left. 2-point conversion was good, makes it 28-14. Big thing in the game. So, Coy ended up being 14-19 for 141, 2 scores, 2 interceptions, but he also ran it 6 times for 31 yards, which was his game high on the year. He had a short touchdown run, but also just did a good job overall of controlling the ball after, and maybe the play of the game, which it's not going to be the one you're thinking of, where I said it was, yeah. But so Zane Trace scores to make it 14-6. The next play from scrimmage, Coy and Braden have a miscommunication. Ball's loose. Looks like Zane Trace is on it, but Landon Caruth, for the center for
the fumble recovery king,
just goes in and just rips it out. Ends up at least his 3rd fumble recovery of the season, and they've all been big, but they end up scoring on that possession, which Zane Trace would have had the ball about the 40-yard line, so it would have been a huge change of possession, and maybe that's the game if he doesn't recover that. So, but Braden, 24 carries, 123 yards, had a score, his 3rd straight really good game running the ball. Through the air, Unioto threw it to 5 different guys. Braden had 6 catches for 33 yards, but Jackson Zickafoos 4 for 55 and a score. David Long played pretty well for Unioto on both sides. He actually had four touches. Somebody who doesn't get the ball a whole lot. Also up front for Unioto, Marcel James, Ben Griffin, and Bryce Jarvis played very, very well, as I felt like they controlled the line of scrimmage a lot in that second half on both sides of the ball. So for Zane Trace, they were led by Silas Stewart. He had 14 carries for 105 yards. He had a good overall game. 7.5 a carry for the senior. Another 100-yard game for him, 2 scores. Bryce Johnson went down with an injury late, or about midway through the 4th. It was right before Unioto's last scoring drive. It was a 4th down. Judah Zickafoos shot through the line and made a great play, and then Bryce Johnson didn't come back. He had his helmet on at the end, so hopefully he's able to come back in the future. But that would be a big loss for them because he's very tough. But yeah, overall, I thought, Zane Trace didn't play poorly. It's just once they got behind, they're not really made to air it out yet. Right. Even though they've got some really good athletes, they're not really made for that. It's more like their one really big pass in the game was that 59-yarder from Gunnar McCullough to Peyton Dotson that came off of play action. It was the first pass of the game. So they're not really made to do that. If they are able to, I can see them, making some noise a little bit later, but until then, it's going to be kind of tough for them to make a comeback in a game like that.
I forget the exact stat, but I think Dotson now is like 3 catches for like $105 now. So it's like the dude has 3 catches and they're all like 30+ yard receptions. So it's not too often you see, and we were talking to Kenneth a little bit. It's not too often that your tight end is your fastest guy on the offensive side of the ball. But man, and they went to him a couple times. He probably had 3 targets. I think maybe one was in the end zone, and another may have been another like seam.
One was the interception at the end that Jackson Zickafoos had. That play, and that actually is on there, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was Judah Zickafoos or Cody Braden that ended up. It was and this is Peyton Dotson. It's awesome, by the way, because on the play it's a high throw, gets a hand on it, and gets hit from below, ends up doing a complete backflip.
And like lands on his knees, like going the other way.
Jackson Zickafoose gets an interception for Unioto. Returns it about 30 yards. The person that forces him out of bounds is Peyton Dodson. Like, he could have just laid there after, because you get flipped over.
Right.
Probably don't want to get going immediately, but had the wherewithal to get up and go. And I'm sure his coaches, they probably didn't love showing that play, but they probably like showing that play, part of the play, because that's just a great effort play, and that can really inspire your team to make some big plays later on as well.
The big thing, I wouldn't necessarily say the big thing, but I think a contributing factor to this game as well is, you talk about how Zane Trace, ground and pound, that's kind of what they want to do. And in the game, Unioto 9 tackles for loss, ZT only had 3, and also Unioto had 3 sacks. Meanwhile, Zane Trace had none. So it seemed like up front, Unioto sort of won that battle, and it seemed like going in, a lot of the noise was that maybe Unioto isn't conditioned or something. I'm not sure what
I don't know what
was.
I don't know what it was other than these guys play a lot. But if you look at those 3 that I mentioned, even Lana Cruz, none of them are like big. They're big, like strong looking dudes that probably don't want to run a whole lot, but look like they could if you have to. They look like they're pretty well conditioned, and maybe early in the season they're getting tired late in the games, but you couldn't tell if they're getting tired at all in that one because they're moving the ball really well, and really it was just a really impressive display up front by Unioto's guys up front.
And Unioto at home against Paint Valley this week. We'll talk about that game a little later on. ZT senior night, I believe they host Southeastern this week, so presuming they will probably pick up a win and head into week 10 with one loss in the league,
which would be
Paint Valley.
A must win to get in the playoffs.
Like this coming week or next week?
The next 2 weeks, but yeah, because with 5 wins has them at 78% in, but it would also say at Ironton, so you might want to get 6 wins. I'm not saying that like Fairland. Ironton beat Fairland 41.
I would much rather play Fairland than
and that's not saying anything about
Fairland though.
And that's not saying anything about Fairland.
Either way, it's a long trip.
Yeah, it's a long trip against a really good team, but I would.
Although news maybe that Ethan Wall might be banged up a little bit for Fairland.
But they're still very, very athletic. Right. But so things aren't over for Zane Trace as they still got stuff to play for, especially if Paint Valley can beat Unioto this week, which we'll talk about for Unioto. It's a team that they hadn't won the SVC since 1998, going into last year, and they win it finally. And now, unless something absolutely insane happens in week 10, they will at least got to share. And I'm sure they don't want to share, especially with playing a Paint Valley team that's 7-1 coming into it. So it's a big one for them. I think the big thing for Unioto is their depth has been. It's been tested this year, but it's been really good at the same time because Cody Braden was one of their wide receivers to start the year. Now he's over close to 500 yards rushing, and I'm not sure he's played running back a whole lot before the last 3 weeks. So they've found some things to work, moved some guys around. Like Levi Beam had over 115 yards receiving in week.
He had the biggest play of the season.
Yeah,
on that.
Told you. That was a big play. I know it was probably a little hyperbole.
Maybe if the drive.
Yeah. It was a bit of hyperbole, but it was a big play. So, but he had over 115 yards the week before, gets 1 touch, but picks up 18 yards. So, they're finding different ways to incorporate guys. That's not even mentioning Blake Hoops, who they did a good job of slowing down, but I thought he did
and Cutright both. Yeah. They combined for 3 catches for 30 yards.
Yep.
And really for Cutright, you figure if he's tackled, it's a catch for maybe 5 yards and no touchdowns. So I think ZT did a relatively good job at neutralizing the big name guys, but when you play a team like Unioto that just has so many threats, it's tough. And Cody Braden led the team in carries and receptions. So I think David Long had a catch and a few carries as well. He didn't get in the end zone, did he?
No.
I didn't think so.
But,
and then Coy's running the ball, which going into the night, he only had 2 rushing touchdowns on the season. So it's borderline pick your poison, but I think ZT kind of put the blueprint out there on what you have to do because, I mean, they were in it. And I think, and we'll talk about it a little later on, but Paint Valley a little more dual threat than ZT is. So the defensive game plan going to be a little bit more diverse than when you go in saying, well, this is a team that's going to be Stewart or Johnson borderline every play. So we'll see what happens this week, and we'll talk about that game a little later on. We'll go ahead and move up to the Mid-State League, talk about one of the fastest re-rising teams. I mean, they were one of the best teams in the area just a few years ago, and in the last 2 years,
long time.
The last 2 years, extremely down. And after week 1, you're thinking, well, here we go again. But man, Amanda-Clearcreek, what a year they've had in comparison. I think did they win a game? They won like 2 or 3 games the last 2 years combined.
2 years ago they did not
win a game.
Yeah. Last year, I'm going to their team history page. Last year they went 3-7.
So
0-10
and 3-7.
Yeah,
the last
and
2
that
years.
was they started off 2-1 last year, and then they won their they won their week 10 game 11-6 last year.
Who was that? Like Liberty Union.
Union. Yeah. So yeah, they're a team. They've won state championships they won back-to-back state championships in the early 2000s. They've made it to a state. Actually, no. Correction. They won state championships in the late 90s. They got to the finals twice in the 2000s. And they're a team that even if you go back before the 0-10 season, they had made the playoffs 4 straight years and had won a game 3 of those years. So I mean, they hadn't been down long, but it seemed like they may have been down for a little while.
The thing about Amanda is it's not like they were just kind of down. They were like severely down. And coming in, you kind of thought they might be again after the loss to Lyndon McKinley, but it turns out Lyndon McKinley may not be all that bad that as we thought after that loss.
Well, okay, so 2 years ago, Amanda didn't give up less than 35 points in any game.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's typically the sign that you're probably not very good. Last year, they were getting better. And then this year, I didn't expect it.
Nope.
I mean, I know we've talked about it being a bad loss for Unioto, which I still think it is, but
it looks a little better now.
It looks a lot better now, yeah. Because, the Logan, I don't know. They're on Fantastic 50, they're projected to lose by 10 against Logan Elm. Won by 30. I mean,
and it's not 42 points to 12.
Yeah.
And it was never really ever particularly close. So the Aces pick up a conference win over Logan Elm 42-12. And not a box score from this game. I don't really think we particularly need one. Although I would like to name drop some guys from Amanda.
Oh, I got you. You forgot about Sporting Pumpkin.
I did. Yeah, I guess you could go on there and look at some stuff.
Let me just pull up. Let me get to the...
But we can kind of talk about Amanda, even though they're obviously on the uprise, they're still one of the weirdest teams in the state, in my opinion, because you're favored by 20, and we know the Fantastic 50 ratings, especially in week 1, are maybe not the most accurate, but you're a 20-point favorite in week 1. You lose by 3 to Lyndon McKinley. You're a 37-point dog to Unioto in week 2, and you win by 6 points. And then you beat Adina 17-7, who lost to Unioto 35-0. So you would expect maybe a little larger of a margin of victory than 10 points. You lose to Bloom Carroll by 25. That's relatively normal, I feel. A 36-33 win over Circleville. They were 4-point underdogs, so not the craziest, but they still scored a ton of points in that game. Now, the 25-24 loss to Hamilton, also, I don't think that was particularly crazy either. Hamilton Township hammered Circleville, who the Aces only beat by 3. The 24-6 win. You wanted to?
I was gonna say that was the game where they scored like 30 points in the third quarter.
Who, Amanda?
Yeah, in the Circleville game.
And then the 24-6 win over Lucas. I don't know a whole lot about
Lucas. Hey, they're
Lucas,
the Cubs.
So I can't really talk about that a whole lot. And then obviously last week, 42-12 win over Logan Elm, 10-point underdogs now for Fairfield I about said Logan Elm. For Amanda this week, somehow they're 3-point dogs at Fairfield Union, and they're 28-point favorites next week against Liberty Union. Now, looking into the postseason, I think they're pretty much guaranteed to be in at this point. If they win out, they're favored to play Nelsonville, York. I believe that would be a home game, if I'm not mistaken. Now, if their record goes as the projections go and they lose this week and beat Liberty Union next week, good chance they play at the Coliseum in Portsmouth come week 11, which that would be a matchup. If that matchup happened, that would probably be the game we go to.
Because we're going to try to find something.
Hopefully 2 area teams, and I haven't seen Amanda yet, and I kind of want to now.
So, so I'll just throw out one thing real quick. Lucas, the last 10 years, has made the playoffs. 8 of those years, they've won at least one game. 6 of those years, they've won 2. They lost in the finals a few years ago.
They were 1 point favorite in that game, by the way.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a good win to go and beat a Lucas team that typically wins playoff games. And, so the craziest thing about this, I feel like it was a lot of field position stuff for Amanda in this game because, Bodie Martin, 9 carries, 146 yards. That's really good. He had 3 scores, a 65-yard score, 30 and 33-yard scores also in the second half. Tommy Stye at 7 carries for 52 yards. It really, that's really it. They didn't do a whole lot. They had 230 yards rushing, 18 yards passing, which that's kind of what they are. Logan Elm only had
on one of 3.
Yeah,
they threw it 3 times.
Logan Elm only had 2 turnovers, so it's not like they were, giving the ball away. The punting average was pretty bad for Logan Elm, a 28-yard average on 4 punts. But really, it just looks like, Amanda was very efficient. They recovered a fumble in the end zone. That's always a big one. But the one thing I'll say,
front, they have to be.
Yeah.
Up front, Amanda has to be wild because they held Michael Bach to 97 yards on 25 carries. That's less than 4 per carry for a guy that, just from the what I've seen of him this season, is probably averaging 7 yards a carry. He's been electric this year. I know sacks count against a rushing total, but Aaron Walters, 7 carries for negative 31 yards.
Right.
And Tyler Balby, I'm guessing that is their second-string quarterback. So I think it said he attempted a pass as well.
Austin Holberg. I bet Balby's their punter.
Either way, Bowlby, 1 carry for negative 22 yards. I'm not sure what happened there, but Amanda, I tell you what, like I said, up front, they seem like they're the real deal.
And Unioto's ran the ball pretty well the last few weeks. They didn't run the ball at all against Amanda. So, and one other thing.
Bodie Martin's
that's a good name too.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. He seems like he's the real deal.
Yeah. So, also, Hayden Dunn, their kicker, has been very good against Unioto. I think he hit 3 field goals in that game. Yep. It was either 3 or 4, and he's done that all year. He made all his extra points in this game, and it's when you have that weapon, that's really dynamic for you. So they're a team that, maybe when you see them in the pregame, you see them, on film, maybe you don't take them as serious as you should. But man, they are 5-3 as you went through their stuff. But London McKinley's 5-3 also. That one still kind of stands out a little bit to me. But you lose to Bloom by 25. Most teams in our area are going to lose by 25. And that 1-point game against Hamilton Township, who's playing really well right now. So it's, they don't have a bad loss. It's just they're a team that's very interesting. I am definitely, keeping an eye on them for this week because Fairfield Union's been a really interesting team as well, as they're sitting at 4-4. But they beat Hamilton Township by 17, lost to Fairland by 10, but they also lose to Logan Elm by 21. So I think outside of really Bloom, you don't really know what to expect in the MSL this year. So
right, especially with, like you said, Tays out. And, all right, you ready to move on to the power rankings? I think we're going to do 1 through 20 this week.
Yeah. Let's have a time.
Just so we can. The 1 through 20 definitely helps when you have teams exiting your top 10 because you can kind of say I had them at 11 or I had them at 12 and the team above them lost. So it makes it a little bit easier. But as we normally do, before we jump into the power rankings, we'll talk a little bit about the Perfection 1 Collision Center. and how they have served Southern Ohio families and student athletes for over 30 years. They're one of the oldest collision centers in Ohio, serving Pickaway, Ross, and Pike counties, featuring state-of-the-art equipment, technology, and manufacturing certifications. These certifications may vary by location. Perfection 1, we meet by accident and are highly recommended.
I just like the phrase. I like the highly recommended. It's one of those, like, pretty obvious ones, but I just enjoy it. And remember, if you haven't been to the one in Pike County, that's probably better. But if you're looking for it, it is down north on 23, over by the sheriff's office. It is a newer facility, I believe, in the last 2 years. So they do great work there, and we appreciate everything they do for us on the podcast.
It's one of those. It's kind of like maybe the dentist or doctor's office. Like, you really don't want to go, but
yeah, it's good to know where it's at.
Right. It's the place you want to go if you have to. But
yes,
nobody wants to wreck a car. But if you do, you want to have the best people working on it, and that's what you get at Perfection 1. So, all right, we can jump into the power rankings. I'll kick it off with my top 10. I'm actually gonna have to pull up my. Oh, we're about to lose our TikTok streak.
It's probably better.
But all right, I actually have to pull up last week so I know kind of how I moved people around, because I just don't remember off the top of my head.
So I'm gonna while you're looking that up
to
fill some time, I just want people out there to was it 113 days?
14 now.
114 day TikTok streak. Just think about what fun sports only things that we are sending to each other, mostly me to him. But yeah, so just if you want to comment that, you can.
All right.
Hopefully you're not right.
All right. Yeah, hopefully. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the power rankings. I'll kick it off with my top 10. So I moved Jackson up into the 2 spot last week. I just felt like, with Fairland being that close with Portsmouth, I didn't think maybe they should be in the 2. I only moved Fairland down to 3 for last week. They're a little bit lower this week after the lopsided loss to Ironton, but Jackson still in the number 2 spot after pretty much a big win. I mean, it's hard to consider it anything but that. I think it was a 19-point win. Mm-hmm. It was actually perfectly projected by Fantastic 50. It was a 19-point spread. So kudos to them for.
Yeah.
There's a link on the page where you can look at the games they've predicted 100% correctly, and believe it or not, like Jackson and Miami Trace was the only one that was like from our area that they'd gotten right. So that's just a cool bit of information. I went ahead and moved Unioto up from 5 to 3. They pick up a big win over Zane Trace, but this was more so the teams above them lost. So that's why I jumped them up to 3. Miami Trace, I kept at 4. I felt like they played Jackson pretty well. I mean, I think they were leading at one point 21-16 or 21-19. And then the second half just really got away from the Panthers. But I kept them at 4. Wheelersburg moved up from 6 into the 5 spot. I don't remember exactly who they played. Oh, Waverly. They beat Waverly on the road, I believe. Yes. It was like 44-12. So the Pirates are now an even 4-4, the first time they've been at 500 this season. And they remain undefeated in the SOC 2, more than likely going to keep it that way, although they got to take on a Portsmouth West team that has been very impressive so far in 2024. I just lost my... Okay. Athens in the 7 spot, they hammered Wellston, to put it bluntly. It was a very lopsided win for the Bulldogs. So I just kept them at 7. And you kind of, once you get to this part of the power rankings, it's like, well, this team won. Shouldn't they have moved up? Well,
right.
Like, who are you going to move them up over? Because more than likely all the teams above them won or have a similar record. So it gets a little tough at this part of the season. Same thing with Paint Valley. I dropped them down to 8 last week after the loss to Piketon. They pick up a big win over Huntington. Now, I did actually have a fun... Do you want me to give you my Paint Valley fact now, or wait until we talk about the Unioto?
I want to hear it now.
Okay. So,
and if it's really fun, you can talk about it again later.
Okay. So Paint Valley, they win the Maple Leaf Cup or whatever over Huntington, 46-0.
They haven't won it very often lately.
That's where I'm going. Last year, what do you think the last year was that Huntington beat? Now, and like this is like when I see stuff on social media that's like, this is a huge rivalry between two teams that just can't stand each other. It's like people arguing that like Ohio State and Illinois are rivals because like they play for a turtle. that hasn't been contested in I think 2017 was the last time they played. But yeah, so this hasn't even been close to what I would consider a rivalry. Now I know they play for a trophy, but it basically has been in Bainbridge for quite a while, and I want you to tell me how long it's been.
Okay.
And believe it or not, the last time
You were
Huntington
alive.
won,
You were definitely alive.
the last time Huntington won, I think they won 3 in a row.
Okay. So I'm going to go with the Kellos. So 2006?
2006.
Let's go.
And the only reason I know they won 3 in a row is because 2005 and 4 is as far back as Max Preps goes. And I was kind of surprised they had had box scores, not box scores, but scores on there. But that was as far back as it went, so they could have won 10 in a row. I'm guessing they didn't. Not. But it's been a while since Huntington has taken down Bay Valley.
The Kellos, so Justin Keller, their athletic director now, him and his twin brother, they had a really talented group that was their grade, and I think the grade older, and then the grade below them. They won 4 straight SOC Players of the Year in basketball. They won the league multiple times in basketball. They were very, very good. I'm going to try my hardest to not say for Huntington, but they were very, very good for the SVC.
They go somewhere else.
No. I'm just saying
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, in comparison to success-wise, otherwise, typically.
I get you.
Yeah,
I got you. But yeah, and there were some years where, because I went through the entire thing. There were some years where Paint Valley would go 2-8, and one of those wins would be against Huntington. So, and there were some years where it was very close. I think in 2017, Paint Valley only won by 1. So I mean, it's been close, but it's more or less been nearly 2 decades of Paint Valley just keeping the trophy at their place. And to be quite honest, I'm not sure that's going to change in the immediate future, but who knows? It just takes one class, more or less, to win it a couple times. So I'll go ahead and finish out my power rankings with Portsmouth. And once again, I feel like a relatively big win over Rock Hill. It was 44-21, I think, was the final, something to that effect. But you just can't really move them up because there's nobody you can move them up over because everybody above them either won or was coming off of a tough loss and dropped them down a little bit, similar to a team like Fairland, who's up at 6. And then a new team has cracked the top 10 for me this season, as I have the Eastern Eagles, who are 8-0, 3-0 in the SOC 1 as they took down Notre Dame in Beaver last week. Big one coming up in, I think, Crown City is where South Gallia is this week, more or less for the SOC 1 title. So, in Eastern, believe it or not, one of the more air raid offenses this year. They really like to sling it around a little bit with Eric Manley Jr., I think is their guy, nearly 2,000 passing yards through the first 8 weeks of the season. So, hopefully we get a chance to see them in the postseason, maybe week 12 or 13. I know we didn't do week 13 last year, but seems
we got to 12 last year.
No, I was saying we got to 12 because it was with Eastern, but so that rounds out my top 10. New team in there for the first time this year. So
I've got a new team in my top 10, even though I think they were at the beginning.
I think you had them at 8.
And then they dropped very quickly, and then they've slowly made their way up throughout the year. So, number 1, Ironton, Fighting Tigers. They're just, 6-0 at the half, and then they just absolutely destroyed.
Big one for them this week.
Yeah. Then Jackson is my number 2. I believe I had him at number 2 last. No, I still had Fairland, didn't I?
Yep.
Yeah, so I still had Fairland. So Jackson moves back into the number 2 spot, the first time since they lost to Hamilton Ross. A pretty impressive win over Miami Trace for them. Fun fact of them, every time they've played Miami Trace since the FAC started, they've scored 42 or more points, which is kind of insane. Number 3, got the Pirates, Wheelersburg. I'm telling you, the way I do it is very different than how I did last year. So, because I think last year I would have made fun of myself for doing it, but I think, it was a 30-point win on the road at Waverly. To me, that they're the third best team overall. And I know 4-4, but when the teams you've lost to are combined 26-5, I remembered it. Yes. And one of those losses was to Ironton, which was Jackson, one of their losses to Jackson. The teams they've lost to are very, very, very good. Mm-hmm. And the teams other than that, they've taken care of
They
business.
almost beat Harvest Prep.
Yeah, almost beat Harvest Prep, almost beat Jackson. So, I mean, really, they're just a few points away from being 6-2. So, and they are not remotely close to being anything but 4-4. So
Right.
they've really they've shown their dominance in those 4 weeks. They've got a chance this week to continue it with Minford, and then next week is the big one with Portsmouth West, who's been climbing, and I don't think as a team anyone really particularly wants to play because of the style they play. My number 4, I have Fairland. I kept them there. Like I've been kind of bullish on them this year, so on dropping them at all, even though they probably should have lost to Portsmouth, as we talked about in depth last week, but they didn't. They won on the scoreboard, and that's
it's a win.
Yeah. So for me, I have them 4th. I have Unioto 5th. Still some things there that I would like to see tightened up a little bit, but I think they're right on the edge of being in that top 4. They're going to have a tough draw when it comes time for the playoffs, but it's a team that I think they're kind of a all-around team at this point. My number 6, I have the Athens
You skipped
Bulldogs.
5, didn't you?
No, Unioto is 5.
Oh, I must have just blanked out.
I think I went. Yeah, it's okay.
I swear you just went straight from Fairland to Athens.
I didn't. I talked about Unioto.
My bad.
So, my number 6 is Athens, which on Fantastic 50 has played the next to last strength of schedule in Division 3, but they have absolutely just destroyed everyone they played. So
Big one this week for them.
Yeah.
Or wait, no.
Nope,
my fault.
not yet.
That's next week.
That's next week, yeah. So they've won 28-14, 55-6, then 42-21, 47-0, 35-7, 27-14 over Warren, 35-0, 41-0. They're favored by 49 this week over River Valley. Probably going to cover that. And then Nelsonville. At Nelsonville, well, no, never mind. I'm not going to say who I thought was going to be there because he's going to be with us in Paint Valley. That'd be a Carson game.
Oh.
Yeah, because it was over in his area.
Wait, why would he be at us at Paint Valley? Week 10.
Yeah. Yeah, come on, you silly goose.
Sorry.
Yeah. My number 7, I have Miami Trace. We talked about it before. Even though they look good at Jackson, I think the loss against Waverly keeps looking worse and worse. So that's kind of where I dropped him. And he was like, well, you lost to Amanda-Clearcreek. And I'm like, yeah, but they've only lost it one time. So they got there.
Well, the difference is, like, for Unioto, the loss to Amanda is looking better and better each week, where, as you said, for Miami Trace, the Waverly loss just keeps getting worse.
Yeah. Which, I still think Waverly's got a chance to be all right. But, this week they'll win, and then they've got Mount Healthy next week, and it's just going to be really tough going into the playoffs with that. But that's just how things go. So that's Miami Trace at number 7 for me. Number 8, I've got Portsmouth. They've got their last chance to win a regular season game this week because next week is Ironton. And I know that's not the nicest way to say it, but, that's probably going to be, what it is. But Chase Highland, Nick Copley, the Williams brothers, Trevin Brooks, they're a really, really nice team all around.
Hopefully Alex McKenzie played this past week as well. I'm not sure what his status is, but
hopefully he can be back because he's a tough player as well. So that's a good Portsmouth team. Number 9, I've got Paint Valley. Got a chance to keep themselves in the hunt for the SVC. Took a step back a couple weeks ago against Piketon. Stepped right back forward against Huntington for the Maple Leaf this week. So it's a big one over in Frenchtown. We'll be there. Fingers crossed on the technology. It's always been good, but you never know. Then my number 10 is the West Senators. As, like I said, they started in my top 10 to start, and then Fairland
and Portsmouth.
Yeah, absolutely dominated them the first 2 weeks. Then they beat a couple FAC teams in tight games, and then since then they've just been climbing. Valley was a really tight game for them as well. So it's they've done what it takes to win, and I think they are one of the most well-coached teams in our area because they do what they do, and they do it really well.
Okay, I'll just quickly fly through my top 20. I'm not going to go as in-depth as I did for my top 10. At 11, a team you just talked about in Portsmouth West. We're just kind of eyeballing that Week 10 game with Wheelersburg to kind of be their last real test before the postseason. I'm not totally sure who they play this week. I'm assuming it's Menford or Oak Hill is kind of all that's left for them at this point.
Oh,
I don't know off the top of my head, but I feel like those
Oak Hill.
Yeah, I figured that's had to be one of them. Number 12, we have Amanda. I actually jumped them from 19 to 12, which I don't usually,
that win was so good.
I usually don't do that to where I move a team that much, but I'm a little more likely to do that with my 11 through 20 because I don't even totally remember where I had all of these teams last week. I just kind of like redid them. 13, I have Waverly. It's a tough loss. I think I may have had them at 12. I may have had them at 14. I'm not totally sure last week, but I have them at 13 now. I dropped Logan Elm all the way from 10 to 14. Maybe if they only lost by 1 or 2 scores, it wouldn't be as low of a drop, but losing by 30 is not the greatest look to a team that you were favored by, I think, 10 against. The 15 spot, I have Nelsonville York. They continue to climb. Big one in Week 10 against Athens, presumably for the TVC, as they'll be the last 2 undefeated teams in that conference. Zane Trace at 16. I think they dropped down a couple spots from last week. They're now back under 500 at 4 they're now at 500 at 4-4, suffering their first league loss. I have them right above Piketon, who they just edged out in Week 5, I believe it was. Piketon picked up another win in the conference this week, now 5-3, 3-2. Rock Hill, I'm not totally sure. I don't think I moved them around too much. They sit at 18 as they're seemingly the surefire third place team in the OVC, although I don't think they've played Colgrove or Chesapeake.
I think
maybe
it'll be Colgrove. I think they're Week 10
because they only have 2 losses in the OVC, and they were both against they were against Fairland and Portsmouth. I think their one win may have been against Gallia. So they
got Chesapeake this week and then Colgrove next week.
So we'll kind of see how third place shakes out in the OVC over the next few weeks. 19, I have South Gallia. They didn't play last week. I'm not sure what happened there, but they're 5-2.
Green didn't have enough players.
Green happened. Okay. But South Gallia, and that probably would have been a win. So we could say South Gallia is probably. Did they forfeit or just not count it?
So it doesn't count officially, but I think if it would come down to something in the standings, I think it ends up being just like a forfeit.
Okay, so we'll just say South Gallia 6-2 and 2-0, which may have actually moved them up in my rankings, maybe a little bit, but I don't have a lot about them. We'll talk about them a little bit later on in the matchup with Eastern this week. But I went over Eastern would shoot them up the ranks. Is currently have Eastern as a top 10 team, so that would definitely increase the maybe the outlook on the Rebels. Is not playing in a week can kind of make you just sit where you were the week before.
Because it kind of did that to Colgrove too.
Right. Yeah, so Colgrove, also 5-2. They missed a week. I think Week 7 is the week they didn't play. I don't think that was due to a team backing out. I think they just never had a game. Because the OVC had it to where you had
where with Ironton left.
Yeah, so they just never really filled that. Or maybe they had it scheduled and somebody backed out. I'm not totally sure what happened. But Colgrove, I have them at 20. Obviously, if they were able to knock off... I don't know what the rest of their schedule looks like.
At Fairland this week and then Rock Hill at home.
Okay, so, I mean...
Not the easiest.
No, but chances... I mean, the only way you can move up the power rankings is by taking down teams that matter, to put it frank. So, we'll see what Colgrove does. One of the best backs in the area in Caden Murphy. So, definitely a capable thing to do over... I mean, we saw Chase Highland have some success whenever he was able... Obviously, he missed the first bit of that game because he went down with... Maybe got a little stinger, but when he came back, I mean, him and, as you mentioned, the Williams brothers were very efficient against Fairland, so maybe if Colgrove were able to get out in front over Fairland, they could hang on, but that'll be a final I'm interested to see come the end of Week 9, so that rounds out my 11 through 20 heading into Week 9.
Yeah, definitely will be interested. My 11 through 20, I'll go a little quicker. Probably won't. It'll probably be just as not quick, but my number 11, I've got Eastern Pike. Once again, undefeated. Got kind of a show me game this week with South Gallia. Number 12, I got Amanda-Clearcreek. Number 13, Logan Elm. Couldn't have Logan Elm over Amanda after that shellacking from the other day. So Amanda's just continued to be impressive even with the 3 losses. I've got Nelsonville York at 14, Waverly 15. I do have Colgrove 16th. I think they'll be the team that eventually gets third in the OVC, but it's going to be, a tough last couple weeks for them. And right now they may be in the playoffs at 5-4 if they would lose the last 2, but more than likely would have to win at least one of those last 2, which I think they are more than capable of doing so. They are 7-8 in the playoffs since 2009, so they've made it at least 8 times. So they are a school that is used to being in the playoffs. My number 17, I have Zane Trace. They're just like a hair off. Like, they're very close to being. They're not that far off from being 7-1, but 4-4. There's your record is what your
James
record
Cook
is.
inactive.
Inactive. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I didn't start him anyway.
Oh, okay. That's good. So then I have Piketon at 18, which, behind Zane Trace after they lost in week 5, but Piketon's been playing really well lately. South Gallia is my number 19 team. We're going to do a preview. We don't know a ton about them individually. We do know a lot about what they've been able to do this year. Been pretty impressive so far. And then my number 20 is Rock Hill. They lose by 3 scores to Portsmouth last week, but they were in that game for most of it. So it should be. It's fun doing this top 20. It is what it is, and it should be fun. Week 9 coming up.
Give me a second. I did start him in the Yahoo League, so I just dropped Juju for him.
Oh,
so I just put Tyler Johnson in my lineup. So maybe he'll go for 14. That's not happening.
Yeah.
I have to score a couple touchdowns. All right, we can go ahead and jump into the previews for this week. Only 2 games on tap. It's not necessarily the greatest slate of games in week 9. I think last year we went down to Portsmouth and South Point, which actually ended up being not the worst game. It was a pretty good, low scoring, but it was a good game, and that was kind of the first look we had at some of the South Point guys that we'd see, Wilburn and I'm completely Zathan Haney, I think, was another one. A couple of those guys that we would see come tournament time, or not come tournament time. Well, actually, I don't think we saw South Point. I guess we saw them handle Portsmouth. That home and away series was won. I mean, Portsmouth loses by like 40 at home and then goes to South Point and wins. That was
definitely didn't expect that.
That was a
After we did that game, I was like, let's not go down for the second one.
But we weren't doing it anyway.
Yeah. Why?
I'm not driving to South Point.
Why not? It's just down there.
South Point is literally probably an hour and a half from where we're at right now,
which is 40 minutes from where we live.
Yeah. So, all right, we can go
Keep
ahead.
that in mind whenever you watch the podcast.
Yeah. If you wonder why Portsmouth is about as south as we go, it's because it's far, and there's no extra monetary. You don't get paid extra for driving further away. So, that's why Portsmouth is about as south as we go. All right. Enough of the chit-chat. Let's go ahead and jump into some of these previews coming up for this week. I know I have them ordered the way I have them ordered, but I think we should start with the second one. So we're going to talk about Unioto and Paint Valley. After this first game, we're going to talk about Eastern and South Gallia. Obviously, as we mentioned, this is for the SOC 1 title. Not officially, but it more or less is. They're the last 2 undefeated teams in the conference. And as it stands right now, Fantastic 50 has Eastern as a 6-point favorite on the road against the Rebels. And coming into the Week 9 matchup, Eastern is coming off of what last year was an SOC 1 title game with Notre Dame. They handle the the Titans. I always get that mixed up.
Because they play at Spartan Stadium.
Right.
It's confusing. They should change it to Titan Stadium. Even though
or just change the Notre Dame Spartans. Yeah. But a 43-22 win over Notre Dame for Eastern. That one was at home, and they graduated a lot last year, and it kind of it made you think, well, it's a small school, and anytime you graduate like 2 or 3 skill guys, you're probably going to take a step back, but it's anything but that for them. As the junior quarterback, Eric Manley Jr., on the year, 1,813 yards on a 53 completion percentage. So that just tells you they're hitting big plays and they throw it a lot.
Yeah,
if he has that many yards on that completion percentage.
And this next stat is ridiculous.
27 touchdowns, 29 including his 2 rushing, just 5 interceptions for Manley on the season, along with a $191 on the ground. And a lot of guys getting it done in the receiving game for Eastern. You have Tucker Leist, who, and they this is kind of where they graduate. I think they graduated 2 of their pass catchers from last year. I can't.
Jace White.
Yeah, I was going to say Jace White, and wasn't one of the Warners one that graduated, the older one, I believe.
Yeah.
But Tucker Leist on the year, 34 grabs for 769 yards and 3 touchdowns. So
13.
What did I say?
3.
Oh, yeah, excuse me. 13 touchdowns for Tucker Leist. Wyatt Richardson, who I believe was their running back last year now, has 23 grabs for 413 yards and 6 touchdowns. Boston Webb, 16 for 310 and 2 tutties. Carson Peters, only 14 catches for 268 yards, but has 5 touchdowns as well. And Jack Montgomery and Brady Moore on the ground are a combined 12 touchdowns and right at are really close to, I think, 900-ish yards or 1,000 yards combined. So
1,002.
So they, it's a very. Are you doing the math?
12. It's 1,012.
But for Jack Montgomery, he has 443 on the ground with 6 tutties, and Brady Moore has 569 on the ground with 6 tutties. So it is a very capable offense that I knew they threw it around a little bit last year, but I don't know that. Was it Dylan Morton?
Yes.
Was he throwing it around that much?
I think he was getting it out a lot. I don't know if they were throwing downfield much or what, but they were getting it out quickly, getting it out to their skill guys and making things happen. And they are, with this year, it seems like it's on another level.
Was Carson Peters the kid that went to Southeastern? Or was that a different Peters name?
I think it was a different one.
Was it? I saw that. And I thought there was a Peters kid that went to Southeastern, but nonetheless, Eastern. A lot of guys, and that's what makes it tough. Is you're a smaller school, and when you're a smaller school playing them, it's kind of hard to scheme up a defense to try and take. I mean, unless you have that many guys on defense that can cover all those different dudes. I mean, it's a tough defense to scheme against with limited numbers, when you only have 25 guys on a football team.
Right, yeah. It's especially at the small school level, they're scoring a ton of points. They scored a lot last year, but it was more in the mid to upper 30s. This year, it's 34, 34, 33, 70, 27, 41, 53, 43. So, they're putting up points like crazy.
That's all you had.
Yeah, it's just
I didn't know if you were done or not.
No, they're putting up a bunch of points, and they're not playing the toughest of schedules, but they're taking care of it at a really high level. They're doing a pretty good job defensively as well. I mean, they gave up 33 to Miller, who's probably the best team they've played, who's at 6-2 right now. I mean, that was a 34-33 overtime victory there. And then besides that, I mean, 29 to Sims Valley a couple weeks ago, and then 22 is the most they've given up besides that. So they have been pretty solid on defense as well. So it's a really dynamic team for show.
So we can talk a little bit about South Gallia, just kind of some team stats for the Rebels. So they're 5-2, 2-0 in the SOC1. Did not play last week due to Franklin Furnace Green not having enough guys to get out on the field. So for South Gallia, they've actually only allowed more than 2 touchdowns in a game twice this year. That's through 7 contests up to this point. It was week 1 against Southern. They lose 38-20, and that wasn't week 1 against Southern. I can't remember what week it was. But was it? Oh, yeah, that's what I wrote. Week 1 against Southern, and then they also had a 43-14 loss against Eastern Meg. So in games that they've allowed more than 2 touchdowns, they're 0-2, and so they don't give up a ton of points. And Eastern has only been held under 30 points once this year, and it was a game against Southern, which they actually won. And Southern, as we just said, a team that beat South Gallia earlier in the year. And you kind of alluded to how many points Eastern has been scoring. They've scored 40 points or more 4 times this season, and all 4 have come in the last 4 weeks. And they've done it in each of the last 3 weeks. So it's either who they're playing or this Eastern offense is just absolutely caught fire the last half of the season.
Yeah, it's been a really good defensive team. I mean, the Oak Hill score, Oak Hill put up some points on, Wheelersburg. They've been able to throw the ball a good bit, so holding them to 14 points. I mean, Notre Dame 36-8. That's a much different score than the the 43-22 game against Eastern, but it's similar in like the amount. So I'm just really interested in this. They've had an extra week to prep. Maybe they were able to get out and watch Eastern in person, because if you see a team in person, maybe it's a little more dynamic than what you see on film. So definitely, one of the more spread out games in conference in the area. So should be a fun one. Hopefully we have someone down there, because that's a big game down there in the SOC 1 territory.
All right. When that, once again, as it stands, a 6-point favorite in favor of Eastern. So we can go ahead and move on to, it hasn't been announced yet, but I'm assuming our Kingston National Bank game of the week.
Right.
Between Unioto and Paint Valley. If it's not, nonetheless, it'll be the game we're live streaming this week. So Unioto, Paint Valley. It's not technically the league title. Well, let's just start that segment over, because I kind of jagged that all up. So it's Paint Valley at Unioto. Paint Valley comes in 7-1, 4-1 in the SVC, a big win last week for them, 46-0 over Huntington. And I'll reiterate it just so it makes its way into the pregame before the stream. That rivalry between Paint Valley and Huntington has been very one-sided for nearly the last 2 decades. As you mentioned, that group that went through for Huntington, I think it was 2006 was the last time Huntington took down Paint Valley. So the Maple Leaf Trophy has been hanging out in Bainbridge for quite a while now. So, but nonetheless, and you kind of had to feel bad for the Huntsmen, because Paint Valley coming off of the loss to Piketon the week before, it kind of seemed like a maybe a vengeance game or a get right game for the Bearcats. And Paint Valley, they've got a lot of guys that can do it. They've got a quarterback in Preston Faber, who has nearly thrown for 1,300 yards on the year. And
this is through 6.
This is through 6 weeks?
Yeah, or 7. This is through 7 weeks.
So
this doesn't have last week's.
Yeah. Okay, so he's
I usually get that later in the week, so I'll send that to you before we get.
So for Faber, over 1,300 yards on the year, over 15 touchdowns as well. He also has a few rushing touchdowns, so seemingly can get it done on the ground with his legs. And I think Braylon Robertson, he was Offensive Player of the Year last year, wasn't he, or or was it just outright? I don't remember.
It was probably Newton.
Was it?
Yeah, I think he might have been like defensive.
Okay, but
because he's a really good defensive player too.
Braylon Robertson probably leading the SVC in rushing. Would that be an accurate statement?
By a lot.
So he's already over 1,300 yards on the season through 8 weeks. Over 15 touchdowns as well. Also gets it done in the receiving game. He gets 1 or 2 receptions a week. He's over 150 yards on the season. Has also gotten in the end zone a couple times. He's more than likely close to 20 total touchdowns on the season. I'm guessing he got at least 2 against Huntington last week. And then you have Carson Free is kind of the main guy receiving for them. He's their school leader in more or less all receiving categories. I think he leads in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. But you have Jeremy Kane as well to add on to that receiving core for – there's just a trade in my league. I have to check that in a second. Yeah. But Jeremy Kane going into last week had 21 grabs for 444 and 4 touchdowns. So he's put together – is Jeremy Kane, is he a junior? So he's put together a very successful junior year. And, it's something you can kind of get excited about with Carson Free graduating next year. It seems like Kane is very capable of stepping into that number 1 role for whoever – because Faber is a senior. So Faber's a junior as well. Yeah. So that'll be kind of a duo to pay attention to come next year. So it'll be a new number 1 target for Preston Faber, who has definitely aided Carson Free's, school setting records up to this point.
Yeah, and I believe Drez Boland's another one. Cam Cooper's another. Like these couple guys that can catch passes as well. I think Boland's got a couple touchdowns. To go along with these other pass catchers, but Carson Free's been the big one for 3 years now, as most teams are game planning for him. So Unioto's done a really good job with him the last couple of years, really slowed him down, but he hasn't had someone like Jeremy Kane on the other side of him that's going to make it to where Unioto's going to have to pay a little more attention on that side of the ball. Now, how good is the front for Paint Valley? Can they make it to where Preston Faber has a clean pocket? If he's got a clean pocket, he can really throw the ball. And that's when, some big plays can happen for Paint Valley. Now, if Unioto is able to get back and, Bryce Jarvis, Ben Griffin, Marcel James able to cause some havoc back there, that's going to make things a little more difficult for him throwing. But if he gets his feet set, he's very good. 16 touchdowns, 5 interceptions shows that. So, but the big thing for Paint Valley, Braylon Robertson, you gotta slow him down. If you slow him down, then you've got a little bit of a chance. But if not, he can run wild, as he's gone over 200 yards a variety of times in his 3 years over in Bainbridge.
And for the Shermans, 7-1, 5-0 in the SVC. A 6-game win streak for the Shermans, coming off of the loss to Amanda that we talked about during the power rankings segment. Actually, I think we talked about it in the the Logan Elm Amanda review earlier on in the episode. Big win for the Shermans last week at 28-14 at Zane Trace. They're now the last undefeated team in the South Valley Conference, and it has a lot to do with sophomore quarterback Isaac Coy in his first year as a varsity starting quarterback being, it's been a great year. And I think, sometimes when you see mistakes like, last week we see the 2 interceptions, you got to remember this is like a 16-year-old kid in his first year as a varsity quarterback, and he's already doing all of this stuff, and it's kind of a give and a take because he's this young and the standards are already being set for him over the next 2 years of his high school career. But really, that's what you want. Do you remember like the Rex Ryan speech where he's like, I'm not going to say it because there were a lot of bad words in it, but
I thought you were going to just talk about feet.
No, no, but like there's a speech from Rex Ryan where he's in the locker room where he's like, talking about how he doesn't want his team to be the underdog. He's like, we came in, 5-5 and, gosh, I wish I could remember word for word what he said, but he more or less said it's better to have, he said something, and the final thing he said was like, it's better when expectations are high or something, and I think that's what Coy is setting up for his last 2 years, and really for the rest of his sophomore year as well. And we mentioned in last week's episode, and if you didn't get a chance to check it out, you can watch the live stream from last week, and it's Cody Braden and how he has came on for this Unioto team. They go to the ground for Cody Braden. They go through the air to Cody Braden. He's just been the do-it-all guy offensively for Unioto.
Yeah, he's done a little bit of everything. It's 456 yards on the ground, 8 touchdowns, 340 yards through the air, and 4 touchdowns there. So 12 touchdowns leads them by far in that category. He's a really good defensive player as well. You mentioned Coy with expectations. Maybe there weren't expectations coming into the year, but he quickly gave himself expectations, and really last week got off to a slow start through the 2 interceptions in the first half, but in the second half was really good, and really he would even tell you probably shouldn't have thrown an incompletion because that last one probably should have been a touchdown as well. So they've got some big play guys. Blake Hoops, 41 catches, 418 yards. He's more of the possession guy, but last year at Paint Valley when they tried to play him one-on-one, he had a huge game there. Actually had one of the cooler one of our cooler videos, the kind of brother-to-brother connection on that was he's got 5 touchdowns. Caden Cutright, 20 catches for 530 yards, 6 touchdowns. Another big play guy. Jackson Zickfoos, 24 catches, 307 yards, 4 touchdowns. If they need to, Jack Weingartner can go in, Levi Beam, a couple big play guys as well. So they've got a variety of threats. Last week they had 5 different guys carry the ball, 5 different guys catch passes, and that makes you so much more difficult to slow down if you're a defense. So I think that's something for Paint Valley they really got to look at in that way. They haven't played a great schedule yet. They've played, it's not a West Jeff. It's as good as normal.
Right.
They're at 3-5 right now. McLean 1-6 or 1-7. Blanchester 2-6. The one team over 500 they lost to was Piketon. So they got a chance to get things right this week. For the 3 days that they're in school this week, they're going to be all fired up because they have the Bainbridge, the Fall Festival leaves this weekend, so they're off the last couple of days. So for Coach Dye, that's probably going to be, trying to make sure everyone's got their head on straight, and maybe that's a way to keep them locked in is, we're going to get in early on Friday and, make sure we're locked and ready to go. So that could be, an added distraction for them. But when you got the league title on the line, any chance to win the league title, you got to win these last 2 games if you're Paint Valley. So I think they're going to be nice and focused. Now for Unioto, I think it's, you can't let up. You've played really well the last few weeks. Last week, first half wasn't real pretty, but the second half was really good. And you want to keep carrying that over and over again. You want your offensive and defensive line to play really well. Your linebackers, Judah Zickfus has been really good. Braden in that aspect of the ball as well. I mentioned Weingartner. Weingartner's been really good at DB for them. So it's, maybe we got to fill some spaces this week if you got some injuries or other things. But should be a fun game.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do we have any updates from what happened at the end of the nothing? Okay.
Yeah, so that's why I'm like, I don't know for sure on that. So, we'll find out on Friday.
Yeah.
So actually, you'll probably find out earlier than that when you get the
right.
Yeah. If you even have to ask for it again. But
I'll probably check in. We'll see. But just some snippets of information from the last few meetings between Unioto and Paint Valley. The Bearcats winners of 6 in the last 10 meetings. I had that messed up a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
But in the last 10 meetings, Paint Valley has won 6. Now Unioto has won the last 2. The Shermans looking to stay on track for their 3rd gold ball in school history, as well as their 2nd in a row. We mentioned on last week's show, leading up to the preview of Unioto and Zane Trace, how there has been a gold ball winner in the SVC for 9 seasons in a row. So this would be a decade straight of the league champion going a perfect 7-0, or I think in 2020 6-0, but going undefeated in league play.
That one didn't count.
Dina didn't play Southeastern that year or whatever it was. And we also talked about how before this year there had been how 6 of the 8 SVC teams had won a gold ball in the last 6 seasons. Huntington and Westfall, the only 2 that hadn't won one up to that point. And that's kind of the argument that I would use to negate. We've seen some stuff there. It's like, this team shouldn't be in the SVC or whatever. Right. And it's like, before this year, like, there was a different league champion every single year, and it was like a unique team.
Yes.
So,
it's kind of crazy that it's been since 2018 that Paint Valley's even won the SVC.
Right. It's been a little while for the Bearcats, and there have been stretches where Zane Trace, I think Zane Trace won the league like maybe 13, 14, and 15. Like, just because a team wins the league a couple years or 3 or even 4 years in a row, it doesn't mean they need to get bounced out of the league or anything.
Right.
Like,
so
with high school, like, classes come and go. It's not like you have the same guy on your team for 7 years. So you're most likely only going to get 3 playing seasons out of a high school player unless they're just crazy as a freshman. So
like Lane Ruby.
Right. I mean, well, he probably played all 4 years.
He definitely played all 4 years.
But yeah,
he probably felt like he played 7 years to the coaches in the league.
Yeah. So, but in that 9-year span that a gold ball has been awarded, Zane Trace, I think ZT won the first 2 in that stretch, as they were fairly dominant in the mid 2010s. Southeastern has 2 that was 17 and 19. And then other than that, Unioto, Piketon, Adena, and Paint Valley all have 1. And I think for Paint Valley, I think in the 2010s, like, pretty dominant for the most part in the conference. I would have to look it up to know specifically, because I don't know. Like, really, 2017 is about as far back as I go in terms of like who won the league and everything. But it seems like Paint Valley was a fairly dominant force and won a lot of league titles in around that time. So I think it would be something they're looking for. Every year, obviously, you want to win the league, but specifically for Paint Valley, I think they kind of want to reestablish their spot at the top of the Souda Valley Conference.
So Westfall from 2002 to 2012, their worst record was 5-2 in the league, and it happened once.
Right. So they should have been kicked out. Kick them out of here. Send them to the MSL. Yeah,
but I was going to mention, it's a coach that he's passed away since, was at Zane Trace's, Dwayne Hall, who has one of my favorite SVC coaching records. He coached Zane Trace for 4 years. What do you think his league record was?
When did he coach from?
He coached, and this maybe makes it stand out more, but 2004 and 2005, and then 2015 and 2016.
Well, I know 15 and 16 they won gold balls, so that's 14-0.
Yeah.
So I'll just say there's no way he went 28-0.
28-0.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was a pretty good coach. Went 28-0 in his 4 seasons of the SBC. That's one of my favorite.
And they're in a decade apart in the stints. So
yeah. So either he timed them very very wisely, but I think he was coaching different places at that time as well. But yeah, for Paint Valley, they went 7-0 in 2018.
And Paint Valley has long been probably the most successful SVC postseason team. I'd say they probably lead the league in postseason wins in the last decade. It's got to be close.
In the last decade, I would say for sure. Let me go on the Fantastical one.
Do they have that stuff on there?
They've got the stuff in the last few years.
So it seems like Paint Valley is always playing at least in week 12.
So 6 times since 2014 they've made it to the second round.
Okay, well I know nobody else has 6 wins in the last.
I was gonna say the only thing with St. Trace was they won a couple once, but they won 2. St. Trace has won 4 total.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to every team just for fun.
Every team? Do we have time for that?
I'm just gonna go to Southeastern. Southeastern won 2.
Oh, and that was probably in the same year. No, it was 17 and 19.
His sophomore and senior year for.
Yeah, so 17 and 19, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, that'll wrap up our. Unless you have anything else you want to add into.
It should be a fun game. I think it's going to be really nice weather. I think it's going to be a little warmer than it is tonight. I was very chilly, especially when it was raining. I'm a wuss, but I thought the weather was beautiful over in Kinnickinnick the other night. So hopefully it'll be similar to that.
All
right,
right.
Let's have a fun game.
All right, we can go ahead and move on to the volleyball soccer segment of the show. A lot of tournaments now. I think all the regular season junk is over. Some district quarterfinals, some district
quarterfinals.
Whatever it's called. Well, it's not quarterfinal because it's the first round. District eighth of a final.
Some of them are district quarterfinals. For some are tonight, but some of them have to play another extra round before that. So
the sectional semis is what
pretty much
would have used to have been.
So this would be kind of the sectional final, kind of what it is now. But kind of just some quick recaps. Me and Derek went down on Thursday to Wheelersburg and Minford, and you can read about it on the SOSAOhio.com. But Minford, that was my first time seeing them with Lexi Conkle. Holy crud. They are very good. They only beat Lynchburg 1-0 early in the season, or maybe it was 2-1, but they beat Lynchburg by a goal early in the season, and that would be who they would play in the regional semifinal.
Does Lynchburg just always good at girls soccer?
Dude,
because it seems like their
coach is amazing, and they are just close enough to Cincinnati to get some of the really good club players. Like their players play club soccer, and it's not like a big hassle for them to go. Like they're not having to travel like 2 hours to go play for a good club because they're like 40 minutes away. So I think that helps, but they are very good. I don't know if they have the score like they've had the last couple of years, but they're still a really solid team. So that would more than likely be a regional semifinal in Division 5. I think Minford's got an excellent chance to make a deep run. I mean, they beat Wheelersburg 11-1, and Wheelersburg I think is going to win the district in Division 4. So I mean, it's like, what do you do there? I mean, at the end it was kind of piling on, but with Conkle, Lexi Pendleton, Ava Cronin, Maggie Reisner, they've got some really talented upperclassmen, and they are very, very good. And I was very impressed with them. So Benford, super impressive. And then for the second game was Nick Sylvia. Like, I'm trying to think of how to describe his goal. He took it down the right side. I mentioned it in the article I wrote, also on SOSAOhio.com. But he goes down the right side with the ball, cuts it back, and then after he cuts it back, he's then in between 3 defenders. And he makes like 2 moves to get free from them. And then either another defender came on or just one of them morphed from behind him to in front of him. He cuts it back to the inside to his left and then puts it into the side netting. Like it's one of the best goals I've ever seen. definitely in high school, and just overall, it was one of the. But the coolest thing to me was because those games were both for league championships. The crowd that night, it was just really big. So Minford boys had won the first time around, but they had lost to South Webster, so this game was for the league. If they tied, then really Minford probably had bragging rights, even though they would have split for the league. Every time Nick Sylvia touched the ball, he's got 48 goals in the year. The whole crowd behind us, because we were on the Wheelersburg sideline, would be like, "Oh, Nick, Nick, Nick." Like, you could hear them like, "Oh, Nick's got the ball." Like, I'm pretty sure it was people that were there just like, "Hey, well, this kid's good. Let's watch him." But every time he got it, and then when he made that play, was unbelievably loud. It was really cool. And then like a minute later, he scored again. So he's very good. Their defense is outstanding. They've given up 10 goals on the year. It's just, yeah. So I think they've got an excellent chance to make a probably, I would say it would be an upset if they didn't make it to the Elite Eight. Not putting any pressure on you, Coach Step and team, but I feel like it would be an upset if they didn't make it. So then when you're in the Elite Eight, who knows? You just kind of, they've won in the past, they've lost in the past. It's kind of 50. Obviously, it's 50-50 when you get there, but you just kind of never know. So hopefully they can make a deep tournament run. I also saw Chillicothe boys this week. Like, they're ridiculous.
They still have what was the kid's name? It's like Coke, or did he graduate?
Caden Cook graduated.
Cook.
But they still have oh my gosh. Isaac Hurley is ridiculous. Carter Dunphy's really good. Mason Brown leads their defense.
He's just good at everything.
Yeah, he's really good.
Does he play basketball?
He should. I don't think he does. But Landon Motts is a really good goalie. They beat a really good Athens team 4-0, and it was just a complete destruction. Like, Athens team's really good, and it wasn't close at all. So that they're a team that I think has an excellent chance to get to a regional final also. And then once again, you play it out, and hopefully you can make it to the state. So I think there's 3 teams in the boys side that have 3 teams overall that have a chance to make it to state. Now the Minford Lynchburg side in Division 5 on the boys side, I think has an outside chance. I think it'd be a little more difficult because that's where you've got Grandview Heights, who wins it every year. So, that part makes it harder, and that would be in the regional final. But, so we got some really good teams there. We don't have a ton of game reviews, but I do think those teams are ones to watch for. Don't even worry about trying to Mason Brown might have Twitter, but those other guys do not.
No.
So it's like...
No. Twitter's dying.
Yeah, Twitter is dying. And
I don't think Twitter is dying. It's just dying in terms of... there are no new accounts being made in our area.
Yes.
Like, everybody that has Twitter already uses
had it. Yeah.
Right, uses it very frequently, but, and even, most people will use Twitter, athletes will use Twitter to get recruited, and then, once they leave high school, it's just, that account is so dead. It's over with.
It helps because coaches, I think, still may use it.
Twitter, I feel like a lot of people still use Twitter. Like I said, it seems like there aren't any new accounts being made.
Do you want to know how few new accounts there are? I actually use the For You tab now to see stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I would never have done that before. On my old, Coconut Wall Pop, I wouldn't have done that because I had followed too many things. Now I see a lot of stuff about the Cubs and college stuff.
I gotta start using the For You thing. I always complain that I don't.
There's still some garbage on there, but so there's we still get some stuff every once in a while. I'll go on a rant. Like Saturday was probably unbearable for me because I was not happy with Denzel Burke. I don't even really care. That's the thing about the Buckeye football team. I don't really care. I like the basketball team better. Shut up. So it's. I didn't go there. My school didn't have football. Neither of my schools that graduated from had football. But I'm I've always been a Buckeye fan. But I don't know. I don't love the NIL stuff. I don't know.
Well, it's hard and we'll talk about volleyball here in a second. It's hard to get upset. I mean, obviously you want to win every game every year, but the like for Ohio State,
like it doesn't matter.
There's one regular season game that matters now,
yeah,
and that's it. But that one matters anyway, just because it's the last game of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only regular season games that truly matter are probably the last 2 or 3, and even then those don't matter. Like if we beat Oregon, I'm not looking at our schedule, but say we like played Minnesota in week 11 or whatever. Like even if we lost that, like we'd be fine because we beat Michigan the next week. We're still going to be now the Big Ten. There's no conferences, so it's just the top 2 teams. So like we're always gonna like. I'm sorry, but we're beating Penn State, and if you don't think so, the 300 people that watch this, you can clip that and bring that back whenever we play them again. But it was always going to be us and Oregon in the Big Ten title game if we beat Penn State and Michigan. Mm-hmm. So like the game just doesn't matter because there's going to be a rematch, and whoever wins that will get the first round bye.
And that takes away the fun of it. And I think that didn't help. Is in the Urban Meyer time, great guy Urban Meyer,
great coach, but
C+ guy.
Not a good NFL coach.
Not a good NFL coach.
Although,
did you know every school that he coached at or team lost this week? Bowling Green, Utah, Ohio State, and Jacksonville all lost.
Who'd Florida lose to?
In Florida, they lost to Tennessee.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Nice.
it wasn't a good weekend for Urban Meyer. But so like when Urban went there, they just started just killing people, and like the games didn't matter at all because they were going to win every game and then even the last game didn't matter because they were going to win that game every year. Now with Ryan Day, at least there might be a time for them to do some dumb stuff, and it does matter. But like you said, it doesn't really matter because as long as they don't
it's more like the NFL season now.
Yeah,
like,
even if they would lose to Penn State, which I don't think they will, if they would lose to Penn State and then they win the rest of the games, they're still getting the playoffs.
Still getting in at large,
Yeah.
and they won't even play in the Big Ten title game, but they'll be the 10 or 11 seed.
Yeah.
I mean, but I mean that's just how it is. I mean, the Chiefs are going to, probably be the number 1 seed in the AFC, but they're going to lose 3 games.
Yeah.
I don't know to who, but they're going to. I mean, and that's just how it is. But I don't know. I mean, I get it. It's more money, and
Yes.
you get more fan base. Like, there's going to be years where, like, let me try to think of like Georgetown is going to be the 12 seed, and like they'll win their first round game, and maybe even they win their second round game, and then they just get whacked by somebody. Like, football's not basketball, right? Like, I'm sorry, but the chances of a team outside the top 6 winning are so low, and like the only way it could happen is a team like Ohio State loses to Oregon and Penn State, or loses to, I mean, like, honestly, if Ohio State...
Well, like if Georgia loses this week to Texas.
Right. Like, they're still going to get in, but they're going to be an 8 or a 9.
Yeah.
And they would still have a chance to win. So, but, like, some of these teams that, out of, like, the Mountain West, like, I know Boise State has Ashton Genty or whatever, but, like, if they played anybody, like...
They only lost by 3 to Oregon.
Oh, did they?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know they played Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they might be actually good, but they also have the modern day Emmitt Smith on their team.
Yes.
Have you seen him line up in the
Dude, he's
backfield?
awesome.
He just stands like straight up and down.
So also this is going back to the OHSAA. Apparently, soccer tournament games have an 8-goal differential now. It calls the game. It's like a 10-run rule.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because 2 of our local teams 8-0.
Nice.
Got called with 25-17 left. Thanks, Stephen Forsha.
All right, let's go ahead and just wrap it up with the volleyball.
Yeah. Well, it's just kind of all tournament stuff. I got tournament soccer first.
I thought we already went over all that.
No, we did not go over all
my
that. We
fault.
went over the games I went to
Okay.
and talked about. So tournament soccer, we're going to, I don't know how much more in depth we can go next week because some of the games are on Monday. But this week, there's some big games on Wednesday. Division 3, it's going to be Jackson at Marietta, Warren at Chillicothe. I'll be at Chillicothe for the Warren at Chillicothe game. So those will be a couple of big games to follow in Division 3. On the boys' side, in Division 3, you got Fairfield Union. They have to win tonight. Fairfield Union is at Chillicothe, and then Jackson will be at Warren. Those will be a couple games to follow. I think more than likely the home teams win those games, but you never know when it comes tournament time. But that's Division 3 is crazy in both of those. Almost everything else that's going to be really good or competitive will be next week. But if you're looking for anything, look on ohsa.org or also on sosaohio.com. And yeah, so make sure you check out those to see results and whatnot. So, and also we got some Twitter updates. Derek is over at Miami Trace in Chillicothe in volleyball. So like that's a game I would talk about.
Is he there tonight?
Yeah, Miami Trace won the first set 25-20.
Yeah.
So they ended on a 5-0 run. Thanks, Derek Webb.
Nice.
DW 1509. So for volleyball.
What is that even for? Do you know?
I think he was 15 in baseball.
And he graduated in
I bet he
09 or
graduated
something?
in 09, yeah. But I don't know for sure.
There were some solid, oh, wait, these are on Thursday. Sorry. I was looking ahead to the volleyball stuff.
Yeah. Oh, no. I think Thursday volleyball is going to be
No.
really good. Yeah.
I think even tonight, Unioto in Athens as a sectional as a district first round game. Like, if we weren't doing the podcast, that may have been our volleyball stream of the week. Because I feel like, and I say that, and like Athens will win in straight sets, but that just seems like a relatively good matchup. Because I know Unioto's overall record isn't great, but I feel like Unioto is not the team you want to be rewarded. Like, you don't want to play them as a reward for having a good season. Like, that's a very tough first round game.
25-13 in the first, Athens.
Nice.
But
okay.
That's a team that
I figured.
Yeah, that's a team that they'll lose a set like that, and then they'll come back.
They've had moments. I mean, they lost both, but they played Adina and Huntington to 5 sets. They swept Fairfield Union, who has probably the best player in the area, or at least one of.
Yeah.
That's really all I know. But
they have the best player.
I didn't want to.
No, but yeah, it's for Athens. It's not the easiest game, but at least you get
apparently it is
to be at home. But
so far,
it's just one. So yeah, but.
And even that Thursday potential matchup, I'm guessing one of those two teams have to win tonight to get to that. But
yeah, so
I'm guessing it's the Braves.
No, they've already advanced. So Gallia's the 5 seed. So Gallia is the 5 seed. They have to win against the 12 seed, who I don't remember who it is. Gallia's going to win.
Like Rock Hill or something.
Something.
Well, I guess Rock Hill's probably smaller than.
Yeah, but I don't know for sure. But if they win, they'll be at Logan Elm on Thursday, and that would be a district quarter.
You want to do that game? I don't know. Logan Elm's the higher seed in that. Didn't Gallia go like 17-6 or something?
No, Gallia's really good. Like that.
They have the Clark girl that was like already at 1,000 assists in her sophomore year or something. I think
they're all. This game is going to be like. This game next year might be a district final because they're all back. I mean, Logan Elm graduates a couple, but Gallia doesn't.
But yeah, in the same sense, it's like, well, right, and Logan Elm also brings back a player that they don't currently have, and Claire King. So that could be one we go to. I feel like that'll be an interesting matchup. Although I'm not sure how many viewers we would get from Gallia and Logan Elm. Although that is about a 2-hour drive, so
I'll tell you what.
Probably longer than that. That's probably 2.5.
MSL does not love watching live streams, but you know what? I think they do They're pretty well done, and it's a way for at least those kids to be.
If we were able to make all of Gallia aware, which I think we would, because we have contact with Adam Clark down there. He's their AD.
My sister-in-law is a Gal police.
So I feel like we could get the word out if we wanted to do that.
I don't know if she knows anybody on there still.
And I think that would be. That might get put into motion here in the next hour or so.
But yeah, that'd be a fun one on Thursday. So look for that. That's a D4 game. You would have to come
with us.
Yeah, but Division 3, I don't have anything going on. So Division 3 on Thursday will be more than likely Athens or Unioto winner at Marietta, and then Miami Trace and Chillicothe winner at Sheridan. So Miami Trace just dominates the FAC, and then you got to play a district quarterfinal before you'd have to go to Sheridan. And then you win that, and then you get to play Marietta, whoever knows where. And you win that. You still don't win a district because the district is so small that you have to beat a team from the East. So, yeah.
Is Sheridan good at everything?
And girls. I think they were good in everything in boys, too.
I don't know much about them. Like, do they even have a football team? I'm guessing they do.
Very good. They went to the Final Four a few years ago.
What region are they?
311. I'm going to go to that real quick. They're 6-2 this year. So
I didn't realize that Unioto was in Region 15 this year. Were they in Region 15 last year? They were in 16, weren't they?
Yep.
So and Waverly moved up to 15 as well, didn't they?
Yes. So they moved along with them. So Sheridan is 6-2. this year. They lost to 7-1 Licking Valley and 3-5 Licking Heights, which I mean that's a lot bigger school than them. But last year Sheridan got to the regional final, went 12-2. Regional semi this year before at 11-2. They have not got the state. They've gotten to the regional finals a lot. So, yeah, they're a very good program at everything. Yeah.
Go Generals.
Yeah, Generals.
We have a part of one of the bigger moments in SOSA history with the Riley Smith.
That might be the biggest.
I don't know, the Bender field. Well, I guess that was for a district title. I guess
Yeah.
it kind of has to be.
Yeah.
Even though it may have been after the buzzer, but oh well.
Hey, they talked about it. So, whatever.
All
right. I ruined it. Dude, I haven't talked at the end of these games since
End of the game, you just put duct tape over your mouth.
Yeah, I just sit there and then I wait till you get done talking. And then
I wish you would have interrupted me at Valley.
At the Bender kick.
Yeah, I was like, oh, Jalen Boitel.
It happens. But, yeah, it's we'll see. It'll be... Yeah, this should be a fun week. I mean, definitely check out the HSA website, sosaohio.com. Make sure you're checking out our writers and whatnot to see where they're going to be this week. I do think that we're going to be at a lot of stuff this week. And then next week, I am going to be sitting probably at Zane Trace for like 4 straight days for soccer. And then you'll be at Waverly for volleyball on Saturday, right?
Next Saturday.
Yeah, next Saturday.
Yep.
But this week we got like Tuesday. I'll just go over it real quick. Derek is going to be at New Boston at Western Boys Soccer. Carson Sheridan at Fairfield Union Boys Soccer. Brock will be at Valley at Lynchburg Clay Volleyball. Raymond will be taking pictures of Clay at Fairfield Boys Soccer. Yeah, boy, might have signed up for that and then forgot he has a meeting tomorrow, so that would not be me. Then Wednesday, Rock Hill at Oak Hill Volleyball for Derek. Warren at Chillicothe Girls Soccer for me.
I don't even know why we're going over this. You know, although it's tournament time.
I'm just reading it to these people. Wellston at Zane Trace Volleyball on Wednesday for Brock. That should be a fun one. Derek's going to be at Gallia at Logan Elm. See, Derek already wrote in Gallia. He wrote it in already.
Volleyball?
Yeah.
No, he did not.
Yeah, he wrote it on Thursday.
Did he really?
Yeah. I'm telling you.
Is it a stream?
No. As just he's going to be there.
Oh, okay.
No,
okay.
I'm just saying, like, yeah. But yeah, we got a lot of pictures. Ooh, we got a lot of pictures coming for Thursday. So, a lot of soccer. So,
football
on Friday. So, or football on Thursday, and then maybe on Saturday. I don't know. I don't think so. But I'll probably be watching Georgia and Texas Saturday. Bet on them. Actually, just bet on the favorites and win a little bit of money. It's stupid.
All right.
It's a cheat code.
I think that's about all we got for this week's episode. Not quite as long as the last one, though. Still felt like we were sitting here for a little while, but
well, we've been here we said we were going to do this at 4. We didn't start till 6, so yeah, ish.
But yeah, unless you have anything extra to add,
I ain't got nothing.
Very big week in the postseason of the soccer and volleyball worlds.
Yeah.
Still have a few weeks left for football. So.
Yeah, and I think by the end of this week, we might fully understand what each level of the districts are now.
I think I got it.
Yeah.
District first round, district quarter, district semi.
True that.
District final.
Yep.
So why don't they just make it like regional first round, regional second round, regional third round, regional fourth round, regional quarterfinal, regional semi?
They should just mess with it. So I
state first or state.
See, I would like
state round of one.
This is how I would like it.
256.
I would like it if they kept the sectionals, but there's no district semis. So you win a sectional, that gets you into a district final.
So this district semi would be the sectional final,
yeah,
and the old sectional final would be. So like
to me, that like for me, if you want to keep it that way, but I mean it's whatever.
No more sectional banners.
Yeah, they switched it. They switched all kinds. No more sectional shirts. That's going to really hurt some places.
No.
Especially the surprising teams that make it. But the things that's that's going to be different is going to be yeah, I don't know. It's just it's wild and wacky, and I don't know. It's just it is
All right,
what it is.
let's get out of here. Watch
fun.
this awful Monday night football game that really doesn't matter to me. Although
I want to watch baseball.
Are you? Who
Probably.
plays? The AL. It's gotta be the Yankees.
The Cleveland Baseball Club and the New York Yankees.
And the New York.
Who, according
no
to
facial hair.
A-Rod and Derek Jeter, have a walkthrough to the World Series.
I will say, I was basically all in that if the Tigers forced that series to 5, it was over, and then Lane Johnson or whatever, Lane Thomas hits a grand slam off the best pitcher in baseball. So
Dude, Scooble's
the best starter in baseball.
Scooble's still nasty.
But yeah,
yeah.
I don't know. Him and McCloskey, I guess, are probably the best two. At least
you could say Chris Sale, but then when you need him, he's hurt.
Yeah, he's or cutting up his jersey.
Yeah.
I still can't believe that happened. Like, that's so insane that he did that.
Yeah.
What was it? Was it because he didn't like the jersey, or was that just like in retaliation for something else?
It was definitely because he didn't like it. I don't know if it was because it was like too tight and like he just like wasn't comfortable with it, or
I'm gonna take these scissors and cut up my jersey.
It was ugly. That
was it. Not just one of the white pinstripe ones. Was it like an alternate or something?
It was an alternate. It was ugly, but it wasn't like so ugly that like you couldn't just wear it.
Do you remember, I think it was in the finals when the Cavs wore the shirt jerseys and Braun just like ripped the sleeves? Like, why would you want to wear a t-shirt? Like, you're an NBA team and you're sitting there wearing a t-shirt is your jersey. I mean, they're iconic just because they won the finals in them, but like at the same time, those are one of the worst jerseys I've ever seen in my life.
I 100% agree.
Like, I don't know, but yeah, so. All right, go out, watch some technically district tournament volleyball and soccer this
everyone's
week.
In the districts now.
And some week 9 football coming up later on in the week. So, all right, that'll do it for this week's episode of SOSA Overtime, presented by Perfection One.